So with everyone asking for abundance and wanting more in life and wanting to be able to manifest, I want to be able to share a piece of wisdom based on the Hermetic laws, how the actual desire for those things traps you in the never-ending cycle of abundance and scarcity, getting what you want and losing what you want, right? Because the law of polarity states that with every intention, there's an opposite of that intention that is being manifested into all of reality, right? Because the law of polarity states that if we want to feel hot, we must start from cold. If we want to feel high, we must start from low. And so when you ask for high, you're also speaking into the reality that you are currently low. And so to avoid this phenomenon, and in order to actually get what you want without the trap of this duality, you want to think about what's another intention that you can set that does not have anything to do with abundance and scarcity, getting what you want and not getting what you want, that automatically gives you the abundance and getting what you want, right? And so I'm going to give you an example. And so essentially what you could do is you can set the intention to be that much more in alignment with your truest self-expression. Now, granted, you might be thinking, well, doesn't that create the duality that you're currently not expressing your truest expression? Yes, these intentions cannot avoid the duality. But by setting this intention, if you are completely expressing from your truest self, another way to say that is you're expressing in alignment with your divine design, your soul purpose, what God has intended for you, that many terms for this, that in that state, if you think about it and feel into it, you would never wish for abundance in getting what you want, because you are already living the thing, right? If you are already expressing from who you are, what you are, in your grand design, I'll give you another context, if you are already expressing from God's will, if you are already living with the energy of miracles, then therefore you would have no concept, no desire, no intention for abundance or more, right? Because you are not only living in the present and presencing, you are living in the present and presencing with your truest expression, also known as miracles or divine intervention. There are many terms for it, right? And so this is a powerful practice that is not being taught, right? Because you can imagine that the mass media is still teaching basically how to trap you within the game that they have designed for you. The entire system, even all the New Age spiritual books and all the self-development books, these are written by experts that have mastered the game, and they're teaching you how to play the game even better. What they're not doing, and they're maybe not capable of doing, is they're not teaching you how to actually think and operate outside of the game, right? The analogy I typically give is it's almost like you're a character in a video game and you're asking other people who have played this game really well how to play the game, and they coach you on how to play this game. But you want to consider that there is an option to, instead of being coached by someone that has won this game and played it well, that you coach or get coached by the programmer of the game, right? The programmer can go in there and change the game however they want it, because they have access to the source code, the root code of the entire game. And therefore, that's something for you to really deeply ponder, right? Are you studying to be a better character in this game of life? Or are you studying to be able to reprogram and program the game design, the entire totality of reality, to a version that is, a combination harmony of what you want and essentially what source/God/universe wants, right? Those are two very different practices, being in a game or designing the game. Now, I want to caveat this with, there's no right, wrong, good, bad, positive, negative choice. We are actually meant to experience both, right? Because if you've only played the game by itself and you've never experienced how to design the game, that in itself is an imbalance. Conversely, if you never opted in for the game and you just know how to program the game, you would have probably never incarnated, right? You would have just been spirit, because spirit can do this, right? You, before coming into what I call our sacred meat suit, we basically were spirit, felt everything, in tune to the universe, and was able to wield and craft reality. And we incarnate into our sacred meat suit to feel the separation and live under this spell that we are this avatar, this body, right, to experience this. And so my philosophy, my opinion about this is we're meant to experience and remember that we are both, right? So I just want to share that framework with you so you don't think one is better than the other and this is the right way, this is the wrong way, this is positive or this is negative. All I'm saying is that many of us have already mastered being in the game. I think we're all being called, initiated, and asked to start to remember that we can actually code and design the game in its entirety instead of just playing by the game rules that's been given to us. And so that is a very important concept, teaching, wisdom that consistently is showing up in my life, and therefore I am sharing that with the world. And again, just to give you context why in the recent coming moments I will be sharing a lot more is in December, right? In December of 2023, from the spiritual pilgrimage with the Kogi tribe, and them telling us that the prophecy that they have seen is that by June 22nd of 2024, unless we make a massive, significant shift in how humanity nourishes Mother Earth, and the nourishment are our thoughts and our emotions. If we don't shift how we're nourishing Mother Earth will continue to deteriorate, and it will take it upon herself to restore herself at the expense of human lives. And what they really said was within about 15 years, there would be human extinction. Now, if you're listening to this, you might be thinking, well, that may be just their opinion. Well, here's the thing. In the last month and a half, I've been speaking to and gathering with other indigenous wisdom keepers and elders from different areas of the world. And essentially, they are all saying the same thing. The dates might wiggle a bit, but the message is the same. And so there's something to this. And the reason why I'm starting to share a lot more is I'm like, well, we can't just sit passively and let this happen. We must take action. And here's the beauty. We get to take action not from we need to fix something and something's broken or there's a problem or we need to level up. We're actually taking action because this scenario has been preparing us. It's preparing us to allow all humans to truly express your true self even more with complete acceptance, complete compassion, complete love. Through this expression, this unfiltered expression through compassion, love, and acceptance, the automatic side effect is the world will start to feed off of that energy and restore itself without it having to take action. Right now, I'll repeat that, it's very important. The old paradigm and the old energy was about fixing things, and there's a problem that we have to find a solution for, that we need to protect. There's a fight going on. Listen to our language. When we speak, we often say, that hit me, right? Or I'm going to attack that, right? And there's a lot of language embedded into our subconscious that is a fight paradigm. And what the Kogi said to us was a powerful phrase, which is, we have no enemies, meaning there is no fight going on. And so we get to dissolve that old paradigm of fighting, protecting, and trying to set boundaries, what is mine and what is yours, which is that separation paradigm. And we're being called to express from this true nature of us, which is we're human and we're a spirit, right? We're mankind and we're God, basically, right? Harmonized. And what that means is, yes, we have separation, right? There's a body of mine and a body of yours. However, if we just use, quantum mechanics, we're entangled, right? And so if we use hermetics through the law of vibration, we're just a sea of vibrating molecules, one sea, tricked into thinking we are separate molecules, right? Another metaphor to give you is we are an ocean tricked into thinking we're separate water droplets, right? But technically we're both. And so we have existed in the paradigm of separation long enough, where it's fear-driven, what's mine, I don't want to lose things, win, loss, gain, loss, take, give, receive. These are all paradigms of separation and distinction. And we're being called to live in this unity consciousness, right? And again, I will caveat that with, it doesn't mean that separation is bad or good or wrong or right or positive or negative. It just means we are being called to harmonize the two, unity and separation together, right? And so what does that look like? Well, the thinking process, the entire paradigm is different, right? We're not fixing anything. We're literally just getting this incredible opportunity. Everything's been prepared for us so that we get to express our true divine essence, our true selves without filter, right? With complete acceptance. And what that means is we're going to vibrate out this incredible energy of expression and love and acceptance and compassion. And that will feed Mother Earth those energies, right? Whereas the old paradigm is feeding fear, protect, fight, hurt, win, loss energy. And so as we fully express ourselves and feed Mother Earth this energy, we're living in this spherical energetic field that naturally heals everything, right? If you listen to the mass media language, I'm sure in the last couple of years, you heard of the term trauma, wounding, healing, right? That is consistently being programmed by the mass media on purpose for us to slide back into that old paradigm. What we're not being taught, and what the ancient hermetics, the ancient alchemists, the ancient wisdom keepers knew, was that if we simply focus on the light and we make it brighter, we don't have to go into the dark. Now you might be thinking, Stephen, it's really important to do shadow work. Yes, you're doing shadow work by being the light, right? We're not ignoring the shadow. We're automatically addressing the shadow by focusing on the light. Now, this is very different than everything is awesome, everything is beautiful. That's called spiritual bypassing. What this means is no matter what has happened in your life and what is currently experiencing in your life, that you are coming from a place where you allow yourself to fully feel. And that initial feeling might be shock, shame, guilt, fear, anger. And you're approaching that and sitting with it without any judgment, allowing that energy to move through you. And as the energy is allowed to fully move through you, you then smother it, envelop it with acceptance and love. With the context that your God self, your divine self, your higher self, spirit, many terms for this, has orchestrated this for a reason. Right? And so that is a very different energy than that was a wound that now I need to heal. It doesn't mean that there wasn't a intense emotional experience. There was. But the paradigm, the story in which we assign to it will dictate your health, your reality, and your entire life. And so we have been consistently programmed with healing, right? We must take efforts to heal. That may not be true, because if I cut you with a piece of paper, a knife, if I break your bone, as long as you provide it with a natural environment, if you're not irritating it constantly, healing happens naturally, right? When you cut yourself, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to like give it energy or eat certain foods or pray or meditate for it to heal. The cut heals itself. And so we may want to open up our consciousness to the fact that our innate system is designed to restore itself, just like nature. Right? I'll give you an example. When a tree branch breaks from, let's say, wind, we don't say we got to tape the tree branch back. Nature doesn't have a process to put the branch back. It accepts that the nature's on the ground. Mycelium will start to decompose the branch and turn it into fertilizer, basically in the soil, so that the next phase of life, right, new seedlings in that forest or the backyard of someone, the new life can grow. That's the natural cycle. It's humans with our human construct that says, you know, we need to tape the branch back. Let's duct tape it, let's nail it back, right? Maybe not. If we just observed how nature functions and realize that we are a part of nature, we then start to gain an entirely different paradigm outside of the existing context in the video game that's been programmed for us to live in. We now are living in accordance with the divine design and how nature works. And again, I will say this is why I'm such a big fan of the Hermetics, because those 7 Hermetic laws essentially state how nature in the totality of reality works. It was widely taught in the past, and it was basically suppressed and hidden and burned because of religious reasons, right? Because religion wants to be the middleman. Religion wants to say you need to do this in order to feel closer to God, in order to be spiritual, in order to go to heaven, whatever the promise is. Whereas the ancient teaching said, no, you are it. There is no if this, then that. You are already there. And you're living life from there not from not there, right? Religion will typically say you're not there yet, and you need to do this to get there, right? And so this is a very important concept for every one of us to take in, that we are already there, that there's nowhere else to get. Now, that doesn't mean you just sit and do nothing all day, right? A lot of people say, well, you know, being is not doing and doing is taking action. That may not be the case, right? Being is taking action just to take the action without an expected, intended outcome and reason, right? Kids will play. They'll just like run around and scream and draw things and do whatever. They're not saying, I'm going to run to increase my cardiovascular fitness. I'm going to scream to open my throat chakra. I'm going to draw because that's how I manifest, right? They're just doing it. And they're acting and doing all the time, but they're in a state of being, right? Because they're not attached to the intention and the outcome. We've been programmed, again, remember school, and in case you don't know, school was designed to make obedient factory workers and military personnel. I can trace this back, it's actually in the book that I'm writing. It was not designed to make happy, joyful, conscious beings, right? And so we were trained and programmed to set a specific goal, act on that goal, achieve that goal, and then set the next bigger goal. That mindset, that mental framework makes for an incredible employee. However, we don't have to live as employees. We are so much more, again, nothing wrong if you have a job and you're an employee. I'm just suggesting that there's a whole nother side of reality that we do get to experience, where we literally, with every thought, we are in everything that we're looking at, we are collapsing the infinite wave of possibilities into particles. And again, that doesn't make sense. You can, wherever you're watching this from, pause the video and go to YouTube and type in the double slit experiment, and it will scientifically show you how we are literally collapsing infinite particles or infinite waves into particles. In other words, we are choosing reality. We're literally broadcasting through our consciousness how and what we are experiencing, right? We're not just observing, we're creating in the same time, right? And so once you realize this, you realize that, what are we doing? Why are we following the rules, right? Why are we following the life rules that's been given to us? Why are we doing the typical work X number of hours on the weekdays to only enjoy the weekends? That's the micro, like endure and then enjoy a bit, and then endure until you're 65 and then you retire and then enjoy, right? Why this paradigm, right? Why make sacrifices? Why don't focus on your health and your mind, but focus on the external, focus on other people, right? All the common paradigms. Why? You know, I invite all of us to kind of question the paradigms in which we're in, because from working with so many patients, like 9,000 patients in the last 23 years, and roughly 200 plus different remarkable, well-resourced entrepreneurs who are doing incredible things and impact in the world, I see a commonality, which is they are trying to get clear and better at the existing context and forgetting that we get to question the context. And it goes back to, why are we trying to play the game better when we can design an entirely new game, right? And so you might be thinking, what does that look like? Well, I'm going to give you an example, right? So the existing game would be, you get a job, you get a paycheck, that means security, and after your bills, the leftover stuff you get to enjoy. Maybe you buy some stuff, maybe you go somewhere. And if you do this long enough and you save your money, then you have enough money to do more stuff that you actually want. But when you're working at your job, you just kind of, that's not your passion. You kind of do that as a means for money, right? That's the game. Give you a different paradigm, all right? A different paradigm is you follow your bliss. You've been following your bliss since you were a baby, right? And by following your bliss, you as a being are literally, you cannot not smile. You're like the person that when someone meets, immediately like, how are you so happy? Why are you able to emanate just such joy? I guarantee you that person will have a characteristic, a trait, or a skill from following bliss that is highly desirable by all the people who are practicing enduring and sacrificing and non-pleasure in order to get money for pleasure. Whereas this person is practicing pleasure, right? They're going to be very valuable. In whatever service, product, way of being, whatever, these people are going to pay for it, right? And so it's a whole different game, right? They're actually attracting energy, and money is just one form and one of many forms of energy. They will be able to attract massive amounts of energy towards them because they are expressing living in accord with how we're meant to live, really, right? And so now, again, I don't mean that that person 24/7 is in joy and bliss, right? If I always say, if a family member of that person is like stabbed to death in front of them, they're not going to be like, this is amazing. Obviously, they're going to be in shock, anger, distraught, all the things, right? But they don't hang on to that. They process it, they move it, and they go back to their steady state of joy and bliss. Whereas most people's steady state, their normal state, is vigilance and stress and worry, right? And so, again, two different games just to give an example. And so, if you're thinking, well, how does that really work? How are we able to do this? And you had mentioned, Stephen, there's this God and then there's humans, and how do we clarify that? Well, one example that I give is through the law of correspondence, right? Through the Hermetic law of correspondence, which states that how the above divine realm and how the universe works is how below the human and the human body and the cells and the DNA and the physiology works. It's the same. How the tiniest molecules behave and function and work, in other words, the rules that govern them, are the same rules that govern the divine, the universe, and the stars, right? Above and below, as above, so below. And then there's a second part of law of correspondence, which is as within, so without. Now, without doesn't mean not have. It means what's on the inside is the same as what's on the outside, right? And so what that means is your internal representation of you, which we would call it your subconscious mind, is constantly projecting out the external world. What that means is your everyday life experience is an exact replica of what your subconscious mind wants, right? If there's anything in your life that is not in match with what your conscious mind wants, it's less about manifesting, it's more about getting your conscious mind and your subconscious mind to say the same thing, right? That's a very important concept. And so, because if you're just focusing on manifesting, you're not focusing on the root of it. You're always looking at suppressing or changing the symptoms, which is the external world. But if you get in complete alignment and have the ability to tap into your subconscious, you'll never need to manifest, because in reality you are always manifesting. You're never not manifesting. If you're in accord with your subconscious mind, you're essentially now able to code the game of reality instead of just playing the game, right? Always back to that game analogy. And so, however, I want to speak about the as above, so below. That was the as within, so without side of the law of correspondence. The as above, so below side states how God in the universe works is how our physiology works. And I'm going to, in a way, prove it to you. And so, physiologically, 78-ish of our DNA, percent of our DNA makes light, right? We produce biophotons, which is just a fancy term for light from a biological source. We literally birth light particles 24/7 that emanate from us. Only about 22% of our DNA makes proteins that runs our biological self, right? And so one, already a big aha, and I've shared this on many videos, which is we are 1/4 biological, physiological, chemical beings, 3/4 light energetic beings. How many of you walk around saying, oh yeah, I'm 3/4, I'm 3 times more a light being than a meat suit biological being? We may not. We're walking around thinking we are 100% biological, right? We drink protein, carbs, fats, take supplements, medicine, all biological. And so we're actually 3/4 energetic beings and only 1/4 biological beings. That is pretty mind-blowing. And so these biophotons, we're literally making it from our DNA. And by the way, your DNA has receptors for these biophotons. We literally can communicate through fiber optic light waves with each other. Every human on the planet can do this, and we can also explain that through quantum entanglement, that basically can science intuition. And so let's get back to as above, so below. When we make these trillions of biophotons constantly, every photon, when it was a part of us, it's us. But when it leaves our body and emanates out into the universe, it might now think that it is its own entity, right? It's like, I'm biophoton 3, and then boop, I'm biophoton 5, I am biophoton 7. And so it might think it's its own entity, but it came from us. It was a part of us, right? This is the whole, drop ocean analogy. And so that biophoton goes out there and just bounces all over the universe. At some point, that biophoton bounces back to us, right? So here's the interesting thing. It thinks its own individual self, biophoton, but at some point it will bounce back to source, where it came from, the person that emanated and created that biophoton. Just like we, right, are made in the image of God, we think when we incarnate that we are this separate person, like I'm a Stephen, and I am, just like that biophoton is biophoton number 7. However, we're also an aspect of God, just like the biophoton was a part and aspect of Stephen. And so this is a literally scientific way of looking at the law of correspondence as above, so below, and how the divine realm works is how our physiology works. Why am I sharing this with you? Well, as you feel into this, as you realize the impact of the law of correspondence, you start to realize that, oh my God, we as humans are also these divine beings. Therefore, we are capable of so much more, right? And so this is why, the ancient Egyptians documented that we have 360 senses instead of just the 5, right? Much more than just touch, taste, smell, sight, and hearing. We have 360 different senses. And I've gone through lots of different spiritual practices and energetic practices to experience some of these other senses for sure. But I just want to share that with you, that we are infinitely more capable than we realize, right? And as we embody this, as we live from this, we are dissolving the gap, I call it, the not there yet energy that I believe is the root energy that is causing all the destruction and chaos and things in the world. And we're experiencing that for a reason. We have all incarnated in this lifetime so that we have experienced, I'll give you context first, we have experienced what it feels like to be in separation, to feel the gap, to feel that we're not there yet, just so we can fully appreciate how it feels to be the opposite, which is wholeness, we're there, unity, love, acceptance, right? Because without this feeling, we cannot discern this side. Without ever feeling cold, we cannot discern hot. We need at one point to experience cold for a second to discern this as being hot. If we've never experienced cold, this is just this, right? We won't call it hot because there's no contrast for us to experience what it actually is. And so that context may give you some insight and sit with and be okay with all the separation and chaos. It was all divinely orchestrated so that as we start to swing towards unity, we can know it, appreciate it, love it, and get there and be there and discern it even more, right? This is the grand design of life, basically. And so as you're taking in these concepts, I want you to start to pay attention to your language, right? Our language that we think and speak is consistently programming all of reality. And so for example, many of you have probably seen videos and know this now, right? Sort of the basic level is when you say I have to versus I get to, it's a whole different energy. Have to is a burden, get to is an opportunity. However, there are infinitely deeper aspects to language, right? That's sort of like the initial white belt stage of language awareness. I want to talk about a little bit more advanced stages of language awareness. Start to pay attention to the word use, U-S-E, use in your language. Here's why. What I've observed in people where their language is a lot of use this and use that, use this, like I use plant medicines, I use this tool, I use food as fuel, I use creates a mechanistic aspect to the thing that we're using. I believe that the more frequently a person says use, the less in tune they are to relationship. Right? I'll say that again. The more frequent a person uses the word use, like I just said, the less they're in tune to the relationship of things, right? Because you're just, the relationship is one of use, right? It's just like accomplish A, B, done. Whereas if you relate to the thing, you develop a much deeper feeling, a much deeper awareness of the thing. And I'll give you an example so this sort of lands. I can use a fork to eat, or I can relate to the fork and feel the weight of it and the coldness of it when I first touch it, and how the texture of it affects my taste as I put it in my mouth. That's a deep relational aspect to the fork. Whereas if I simply say, I use the fork to eat, you are missing out and not deriving all that additional experience because the relationship is one of use. And so I invite you to start to listen to your inner dialogue. Where are you saying the word use in your life? And wherever you observe that, the first step is you honor it, right? There's nothing wrong that's happening. It's like, got it. I really have you sort of understood the use mechanical relationship of this, so that when I transition to the deeper aspects of relationship, I have that contrast, that hot and cold contrast, to really understand what it feels like and what the energy of use is, and what the energy like and what the deeper energy of relating to is, right? You valued the use previously because it allows you to experience the relationship side even more deeply, right? There's nothing wrong, nothing bad, nothing negative that's happening. And what this does is we start to vibrate this deeper relationship energy. Now, imagine that when you're vibrating a deeper connection to forks, to your pants, to your car, versus using your pants and using your car. What do you think is going to happen to your relationships to your partner, your friends, and other humans? In other words, when you are broadcasting the vibration of relationship, what do you think is going to happen with your relationship to others? Well, this is where I talk about how the thing that we focus on as it's happening may not always make the bigger impact. In fact, the thing that we're not focusing on here, as we shift this, can have a big, profound impact in the actual thing. And so, to give you an example, as you start to shift from use to relating to your fork, your car, your blender, looking at my blender, you're vibrating that energy of relating, and you're going to have a deeper relationship with everyone in your life without ever setting a goal to have a deeper relationship with everyone in your life, right? This is how we can achieve things obliquely, which is one of the more advanced Hermetic practices. And so this is an important practice that you can apply to everything in life. This is how it's almost like being able to see outside of the game. Right? You're not following the rules of the game anymore, which is direct. We're now indirectly achieving things and assuring the achievement of it by focusing on something else, right? Because when you were in school, when you were growing up, you weren't taught this. By the way, you get to look at this thing and focus on this thing here that guarantees you this. They didn't teach us that. They said, focus on this, make sure you get it. Do all the hard work, sacrifice, willpower to get this thing. That's what we're taught, right? And you may not get it, right? Your goals. Do you hit your goals or do you not hit your goals? They don't say, by the way, you can just focus on this where this is guaranteed. Because that would eliminate all the programming of hard work and sacrifice and getting things done and moving things forward. Like, you literally cannot be trapped in the game if you know how to do this. And so again, huge ahas to really sit with. I want you to make sure that you're taking some of this content and being with it versus moving on to yet another video, another context, or another content, right? It isn't about more tips and tricks. These things are the fundamental things that as you master, you don't need tips and tricks anymore, right? You have the foundational understanding, the foundational practice, and the foundational embodiment of actually now programming the game versus just playing the game itself. And so lastly, right, I'm going to talk about how our desires, right? I'm just looking at some of the notes. Yeah, and so this is a more advanced concept. So I believe one of the greatest practices, and I alluded to this bit earlier in a video, which is we want to make sure that we are living in rhythm with nature. There are so many things that's taking us away from nature, right? For example, like I'm in a box, right? I'm in an apartment, and literally I'm looking at another box. I have a sauna over there, and we're being boxed in through society, and we're not out in the open interacting with nature and living in rhythm with nature. We use the Gregorian calendar, which is not in rhythm with the solar, lunar, astrological system. We're literally not living in alignment with the astrological happenings in the universe. And we're living not in accordance and in rhythm with like the trees and the grass and the wind and the water near us. And so we're so disconnected from nature that we often get illnesses, right? And so then we rely on technology made by humans that is not in alignment with nature to fix those diagnoses, right? We take a drug, right? Or we get some treatment. We forget that the root cause, one of the main root causes, is the disconnection of the laws of the universe that's running, and we have separated from those laws and created our own human laws that are not in resonance with the universal laws. And then because of that dissonance, disharmony, we get dis-ease. We then rely on human creations that are in disharmony with all of that to fix the dis-ease. This is a huge, massive paradigm that we get to realize. And so I'm just inviting you to take that in and sit with that and say, do I continue that game? Or do I start to strip away the paradigm and start to take actions to live in alignment with nature? Now you might be thinking, Stephen, I can't just go out and live in the woods all day. No, that is not what I'm saying. I'm saying start small. I'm saying micro practice, right? Spend a few minutes just communicating with the grass wherever you are. When you turn on your faucet, like I love washing dishes by hand. I don't ever use the dishwasher because when that water comes through my hands as I'm washing the dishes, I'm literally doing a ritual. I'm physiologically, energetically connecting to the water. It is beautiful. The side effect is the dishes are getting clean. I'm not really intending on washing the dishes. That's not the main thing. The main thing is I'm basically doing a water ritual, right? And so you don't have to like separate your life and create this whole other spiritual in harmony with nature practice. You can harmonize it, one and the same, right? Think not in terms of balance, which is two variables that are separate. Think in terms of harmony where they can harmonize together, right? And so I invite you to create your own game plan on how you can harmonize with nature in your day-to-day practices, right? And so, I don't know, when you're driving, really look at and still pay attention to the road, of course, but peripheral, connect with the sky. Or if it's at night, connect with the stars, right? When you're outside, don't just breathe, take in the divine breath, right? The divine air that has been all over the world, right? Collecting energies and, and that air that you're breathing in isn't just air, it's literally been all over the world. And feel into that energy. And so as we do this, we're literally automatically returning our vibration to nature, which side effect dissolves all disease, right? And so this is not something, doctors or even naturopathic doctors or whatever health professional are talking about, because this is based on something much older, right? The newer medicines that have been developed, even naturopathic, are new, just within the last 1,000, 2,000 years. The things I'm speaking about have been around for 20, 30, 40, 50,000 years, and even longer if you want to go down that rabbit hole. And so I encourage all of us to, one, recognize that our current box separated way of living is beautiful, it's going to allow you to feel the beauty of that connection as you develop that connection even more, right? And so I want you to make sure that you put that into your day-to-day practice and start to harmonize with nature, because it wants us to. We're being called to by Mother Earth, by Spirit, by Source, by God, which all the terms, to connect with nature, to remember our nature, which is nature, to remember our divine self, which is the divine. That is what we're being called to do.